It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
We've got a really big podcast episode today, Kylie. Two things that really need a lot of attention. The first one we're going to get to in a sec, but just a quick highlight.
When we as a society say we don't accept this behaviour anymore, then we can offer support. We can step in and say, hey, we can help you to do things better because there are better ways.
A current affair last Thursday night. I had like a, 7-minute interview with them. We're going to talk all about that in a sec. Smacking kids, making it illegal in Australia. There's a lot of noise being made about it again, and rightly so. We'll talk about that in a sec. But first, tonight, a webinar. For anyone who wants to join in, Happy Families members get it included in their membership. If you're not a Happy Families member, that's okay. You can buy the webinar, have access to it for the rest of your life. It's all about autism. We've got Chris Bonello. Chris Bonello is autistic. He's a school teacher in the UK. He gives talks about autism. He's got a stepchild. So the guy plays the role of dad. He also works as a teacher and especially spends a lot of time with kids who have additional needs. He's presenting. It's not me, Kylie. I'm not the one talking about autism tonight. It's Chris, and that's part of the Happy Families membership. Or you can buy the webinar just by going to our Facebook page or happyfamilies.com.au.
I think as a parent, when you have a child who has additional needs or is neurodivergent, there's that fear within us that maybe they won't live life to the fullest, that they won't have opportunities available to them. And what I love about the fact that Chris is going to be speaking with you tonight is just here's somebody who's living with autism and having a fullness of life.
Yeah, he's doing it great. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's talk. Well, that's enough about that. We need to talk about a current affair. Conversation that I had with a journalist. Here's how it went.
Smacking your child has become a bit of a taboo. Is it necessary discipline or should it be illegal? Well, there's now a push to make smacking a criminal offence in Australia, and someone who believes it absolutely should be illegal is Dr. Justin Coulson, a parenting expert and star of Nine program Parental Guidance. I spoke with him late today. Justin, thank you for joining us. Parents have been smacking their kids for really centuries. Why does that have to change?
Well, there's not a shred of credible evidence to support its use. It's an ineffective way of disciplining. There are far better disciplinary strategies that are out there, but the message that it conveys is what I'm most concerned about. Essentially, it says, I love you, but I'm going to hurt you. We hear that in a range of other contexts where that's inappropriate, domestic and family violence being the most obvious and provocative one. We can do better. Our children deserve better. And smacking is linked to a host of negative outcomes in children.
Well, most of us were smacked as kids. I certainly was. And every time I was smacked, I deserved it. I turned out okay.
I hear that a lot. I was smacked as a child and I turned out okay. A couple of things on this. First off, we don't really know how we would have turned out if we weren't smacked. We were. The research evidence shows frequent smacking doubles, if not more, doubles the risk of anxiety and depression in adulthood. It's associated with impacts on social relationships, ruptures the relationship between parent and child. There's no justification for violence. I can't say this any more emphatically, and I'm astounded, Chris, I'm just astounded at how hard Australians will fight for their right to hit a child. If I hit my wife because she quote unquote deserved it, and let's face it, we all have a different threshold for what deservingness is when it comes to violence. If I hit my wife, I will be taken to court and charged because of family and domestic violence. If I hit you in the shops or down at the park or at the beach because you do something that I find offensive, you can and probably will take me to court and have me charged with assault. If I kick my dog because it's barking too much, I'll be charged with animal cruelty. And yet here I am, let's say I've got a toddler, 2 years old. I'm more than double my toddler's height. I'm probably 6 to 10 times my toddler's weight. And it's perfectly legal for me to hit my child because they, quote unquote, deserved it. Nobody deserves to be hit. What an outrage. What an absolute...
But Justin, hang on a second. We're not talking about child abuse. So my wife and I have talked about this.
No, we're not. We're talking about hitting.
We've got a young son. He's a bit young for this, but we've talked about circumstances in which he might put his hand in a boiling pot of water or put a knife into a toaster. Are you really saying that a smack on the back of the hand is off limits, should be made illegal?
I don't understand why we have this fascination with hitting when our children are in danger. If your child's running towards the road, you don't hit them, you pick them up and move them away from the road. Kids see what we do, they follow it. If we keep hitting our kids, they're going to keep on saying, I was hit as a child and I turned out fine, and they're going to keep hitting their kids. But we have better solutions. And the research shows that those better solutions aren't just better in the moment, they're better for the rest of our children's lives. They do better at school. They do better in their relationships. They do better when it comes to mental health, the absence of mental illness. Across the board, children who are not hit do better. They're less likely to end up in jail. They're less likely to do alcohol and other drugs. They're more likely to behave pro-socially. There just isn't the evidence to support it. And there's warehouses full of evidence for other forms of parental discipline where we teach and guide and instruct our children to live in better ways.
So you're seriously saying a parent who gives a light slap on the back of a hand to a child who's about to do something dangerous, that parent should be investigated by the police because smacking should be made illegal?
We're not suggesting here that we should remove children from their parents or remove parents from their children. We're not suggesting that parents should be put into jail because they've given their child a slap. What we're suggesting is that when we as a society say we don't accept this behaviour anymore, then we can offer support, we can offer intervention, we can step in and say, hey, we can help you to do things better because there are better ways.
You have 6 daughters yourself. Have you ever smacked any of those?
I'm sorry to say that I have. In fact, after one smacking episode, I quit my career as a former radio announcer for one of Australia's biggest radio stations. I went back to school and I studied psychology for 8.5 years so that I could learn how to be a better dad, because I saw what it was doing to me, to my wife, and to my family. That one decision has fundamentally changed my life course and brought my family together. We don't hit, we don't need to. There are far better things to do, and it makes families stronger. It makes our kids stronger. It makes our society stronger when we don't use violence.
One of the real concerns here, though, I think, as a society, is are we heading down the path of just raising kids, wrapping them in cotton wool?
This is not namby-pamby parenting. This is not cotton wooling and mollycoddling. We're raising an incredible generation who are doing amazing things. Are there some bad eggs? Yeah, there are. But you know what? There's a whole lot of boomers and a whole lot of Gen Xers and a whole lot of Gen Ys and even a handful of millennials that are kind of getting a whole lot wrong as well. Over time, though, are we improving as a whole? I think the answer has to be yes, and this is one more step in that direction.
If smacking's out of the question and it is made illegal, what do you say to parents to stop bad and dangerous behaviour or prevent bad and dangerous behaviour?
What we're actually saying here is you don't have to hit your kids to get really great results. It's on us to provide an environment where the kids are going to do well. But yeah, I mean, if they're drowning their sister in the pool, or if they're running out in the road with their scooter and doing silly things, then you go and you pick them up and you move them. You switch the toaster off and you put it away. You remove the knives. You do the things that you need to do to provide a safe environment. You just do it without violence.
Dr. Justin Coulson, it is certainly a controversial topic. We really appreciate your time.
Good on you. Thanks, Chris.
Well, as you can imagine, this caused a significant stir
Across the nation.
Across the nation and within our home.
So on A Current Affair, on their Facebook page, I think they've got like 1.8 million followers. Frighteningly, staggeringly, astoundingly, the vast majority of them were up in arms about what I had to say. I wasn't very popular. But I got an email through our contact form on the website that I want to read to you. And just before I do, just a content warning. This is an email that you might just want to skip past if you've got young kids listening. It's going to take about 60 seconds to work through it, but I really want to read it to you because it highlights just why this conversation matters so much. It's from somebody whose name is John, and I'm going to read it to you. It says, "Hi, Justin. My son, aged 21, passed away about 7 weeks ago due to substance abuse. I stopped hitting him when he was about 6, but by then the damage had been done. I didn't know how to parent, was highly stressed and used negative reinforcement in the form of smacking as it was all I knew. Hunter was born at 28 weeks. It was touch and go many times in the first few months of his life." This is hard for me to read. "I thought when he started flourishing in high school, we were past the hard times, but as I said, the damage had been done. In his mid-teens, he developed depression. Then it grew into bipolar. And then in his late teens, other mental health issues. which ultimately led to substance abuse, and Hunter died on the 19th of August. Hunter's risk of these mental illnesses was much higher due to his premature birth. But if I hadn't smacked him so much and so often in his first few years of life, he might have just had one mental illness to deal with rather than all of them. It's a hard thing to live with, knowing that your actions more than 15 years ago are probably a big part of the reason why your son died. There's nothing I can do to get back there and change my own behaviour, but it's a good thing that you're doing, trying to change how we parent. It just might save some other father from having to bury their son or daughter. Now, I'm not going to argue for a moment that smacking is what led to this good man's son's passing. It's impossible to draw a straight line from a child being hit to all of these issues and challenges. But we do have research that says that the risks increase when there's smacking. I read a note like that, and I think of all the conversations that I've had with parents who smacked or kids who were smacked, the interviews that I've done in the media, the constant barrage of emails that I get from people who want to get past this. And my heart just breaks. It breaks because of the pain that so many people feel because they're violent towards their kids. And I got to keep doing it. I got to keep talking about it. I've got to keep arguing that this is not in anyone's best interest for hitting kids to be allowed, even if it's just a tap because they're doing something stupid.
Well, the reality is, while we see it as just a tap, when you look at the physicality, the size, the structure, the stature of you against your younger child, your definition of a tap could very much be what they see as a slap or even more, and the effects that has and the way they see you is devastating.
Back in 2004, I wrote about an article that was written, an empirical article in a peer-reviewed journal by Terry Dobbs and Judith Duncan called Children's Perspectives on Physical Discipline. They interviewed a whole lot of kids, and essentially they found that when kids get hit, they feel like it hurts. They feel like it hurts. That's completely at odds with adult assumptions on the use of physical discipline, but these kids feel like it hurts. Judith Duncan is a researcher at the Children's Issues Centre at the University of Otago in New Zealand, and it's just a really, really elegant little piece of research. The feedback that I got from a bunch of people was really positive, and I wanted to share that, but I also got feedback like this from a guy called Craig Willis who said, "Justin, I just watched Current Affair. You are a complete," I can't actually use the word that he called me. Young people are absolute, I can't use the word that he called them either these days, and you think it's fine. I cannot believe how many children and younger adults swear at teachers who cannot punish them anymore. He got a lot of typos in here. They steal and disobey law enforcement as there are no consequences. Young people should be scared of doing unlawful and unsolvable things, but without punishment we are creating a horrible it should be world with no respect. I can't believe they let you on a TV show with a cannot do wrong church-type mentality. The world is going mad. I happened to respond to Craig and said, Craig, you're a shining light of goodness yourself, buddy. It's obviously not just kids that struggle with respect. Check your mirror. But I don't know if I should have said that or not. But the overwhelming majority of people who responded to A Current Affair, unfortunately, had attitudes like that. And that's the kind of feedback that actually motivates me to keep on going because we have a lot of work to do.
This is a topic that I'm really uncomfortable talking about because of the implications it's had in my own personal life as a child.
We're all humans. Like, I know some parents have actually never hit their kids. We started off on the wrong foot and we struggled with it for a long time. And we don't claim to be perfect and never have. But my goodness, we are so much better than we ever were because of these conversations.
I think the thing that really stands out to me is, in spite of my shortcomings as a mum, at no point would I ever be rallying for the right to hurt my child. Every time I've placed myself in that position, it has just left me so devastated to think that this child that I am responsible for and have lovingly brought into this world would be scared of me because of my inability to check my own anger and find more appropriate ways to lovingly guide them.
Yeah. I said it in the interview. I don't think this made it into the final cut, but in my interview with him, something that must have been edited out, I made the point, no parent ever goes and whacks their kids and walks away going, sure nailed that.
Well,
best parent ever.
But not even that. Like if I did that to someone else's child, if I did that to someone else's child, I would be arrested. We just had a conversation about this, about a man in his jocks running out and...
that's right, Matthew Vanderpoel, the cyclist. He got charged
we've just
for chasing
had
those
this
kids
conversation.
for banging on the door. Yeah.
And they were, those kids were downright disrespectful.
That's right.
And doing the wrong thing.
But he's still not allowed to go and hit him, and rightly so. Absolutely rightly so.
But as a parent, if that was my child and I chose to hit them...
now it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah. Now, we are not sharing this because we want to shame anyone. We're sharing this because we want to elevate the conversation. We want to continue the conversation and help parents to recognise that there are better things to do. A bunch of people have said, well, what are we supposed to do instead? I've got this podcast. You're listening to it. Like there's 600 episodes of free material to tell you what you can do instead of hitting your kids. Listen to the podcast. Listen to a couple of them a day. They're short, they're easy to hear, and there's so much stuff there. My blog, there are like 400, 500, 600 articles on my blog. They're free. There's so much information there to help you to do stuff other than hit your kids. We have the Happy Families membership. It costs a little bit. It's $18 a month or $180 a year. But I'll tell you what, would you pay $180 a year to not hit your kids again? This is why I do what I do. I mean, I literally do what I do because when we had a 3-year-old, I lost the plot and I blew it and I knew that I had to change. That's literally why I do and why we do what we do. So, a current affair came out like an attack dog, went at me. I don't know what everyone else thought of the interview, but you've heard it now, and hopefully it's given you some food for thought. There's been some big reactions from one extreme to the other, and some of them are heartbreaking for heartbreaking reasons, and some of them are heartbreaking because people just won't listen and won't be told. But that's the conversation. We
no matter how many times we have this conversation, though, the only point that the opposing side has is that I was smacked as a kid and I turned out okay.
Yeah.
Like that's the number one argument for being allowed to smack our children.
But how do you know how you would have turned out if you weren't smacked?
When I talk to, the multitudes of friendships and relationships I've had over the years, the relationships they have with their parents are different to the relationships that I'm striving to build with my children now.
So beautifully said. Yeah. The research actually shows that as well. The research actually shows that kids who are smacked have a different quality of relationship with their parents than the kids who weren't.
The way we choose to parent doesn't give us the quick fix or the quick response that a good slap around the ears or,
the backside.
Or the backside would give. But the relationship, trust and building that is entrenched in our children, that's what's so important.
The research also shows that if you whack your kids, 73% of them will be back at some sort of troublesome behaviour within 10 minutes. Fascinating research from George Holden a few years ago where they went into homes and recorded what was happening. So they didn't have to sit there and watch, but they just set up cameras and tape recorders or whatever and recorded the audio. And they found that within 10 minutes, the parents were like, I'm going to have to hit you again in 73% of cases. It doesn't work. There are better options. They're all over the website. They're all over our Facebook page. They're all over the podcast. They're all over everything. They're free. Or become a Happy Families member. Join us tonight for the autism webinar as well. That should be great. Kylie, thanks for having the conversation. I know that you don't like having this conversation. I don't either, but we need to keep having it because we need to get the message across. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rollon from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. For more information about making your family happier, check out the blog, happyfamilies.com.au or our Facebook page, Dr. Justin Coulson's Happy Families.